Hey there, and welcome back to another template design walkthrough. The name of this template is called Ghosted. So we're going to take a quick look at our layers here so that you can see the options and the customizations for this design. So it's set up pretty simple to use. We are going to take advantage of smart objects in this one, so if that's something unfamiliar, this will be a good video for you to check out to see how we're using those. But let's just jump into it here and see what we've got. So at the top of our layer stack, this is our color grading layers. So this is what's going to add the final colorization and contrast and just give the overall image just a little bit more punch and interest. But as always, these are grouped in here, and these can all be turned on and off, or the opacities could be lowered depending on your taste and what you're looking to do. But those are in there and set by default. Directly below that, we have two facial highlight boost layers, and as always you can read all of the layer names as the descriptions for what those layers are being used for. But the top one is for darker skin, the bottom one's for lighter skin. These are just used to paint in on the mask here. So you'll see paint on mask with white, so a white brush, just select the mask, paint in, and that's going to brighten up those facial highlights, but we'll take a look at that momentarily. So jumping on down, we have our normal text layers right here. So at the bottom, this is just a little player number that's preset, the name, and then at the top here, again, all customizable just by double clicking here and typing in any text that you would like. Alright, so just click the check and apply, and it's easy as that to change the text. Now below that, we have this called the lower mascot copy. You're going to see in the background is kind of this shadow of the mascot that's set up here. This is one instance where we're using a smart object to replicate whatever this shadow is. It replicates this cool little logo down here at the bottom as well. And I'll show you how to change that momentarily. But if we open that, you're going to see this has got our logo in it, and then we're just doing some color blocking here with this logo color, which is a simple color picker. You can just come in here, pick a color, type in a value, a sample from a jersey, however you want to grab that color, you could do that right there. Below that, this is where we're getting all of our foreground effects to create this overall effect on this design, kind of like this noisy, textured type of look that really helps kind of bring this home. So if you open this up, there's several different layers in here that are building that effect up. And as always, they could be turned on or off, opacities changed. You could customize how much of that texture by turning some of these film grain effects and stuff on and off. You could totally make that your own as well. So those are within that group. Below this, we have a couple layers attached to our red group. The red group on my designs always indicates where the subject's going to be placed. So we can see attached to the subject group we have some brightness adjustment going on, and that's going to make more sense once we have a subject turned in here. But just doing some brightness adjustment on the subject and some exposure adjustment on the subject to do some fading. But then if you open this group, this is where our next smart object is going to come into play, and this is where the subject for the composite goes in. And again, we're going to take a look at how to drop them in just a minute and update that. But let's look at the rest of the layers before we get into customizing. Below that, we have this bottom shape, which is this kind of arc down here at the bottom, which is separating our foreground subject from these duplicates in the back. You could open that up. Again, you could set a color on this. If you wanted to add a little bit of color in there, you definitely could. Again, very easy to use that. And then below that, we have some more layers clipped down here to our background subject copy. So these are our duplicates in the background of our main guy or girl. And these are getting some effects, some darkening, some hue adjustments, some shading, things like that are all getting applied. And you can see they're clipped to that group just to affect those background subjects. But if you expand this group, you're going to see several layers in here as well. So the first thing you're going to notice likely is these two that say do not edit. So these are your duplicate subjects. You don't need to touch these layers. They're going to automatically update. And then each of those have some different exposure adjustments, some color wash, things like that attached to them to create the effect. All right, so for the most part, unless you just really want to dive in and customize all this, you shouldn't really have to touch anything in there, but the options are there in case you like to really get hands-on and create your own looks. So behind that, that's our text here that's floating in the background. And again, normal text layer. And then below that, this is our mascot logo, so creating that shadow type of look here in the background. So there is some color blocking getting applied to that here as well. So again, just a double click, you could change and add whatever color you want. If you want to add a little bit of color in there, you certainly could. We expand this. There's our main smart object for our mascot. Again, we're going to update that in just a second. But then in the background, we have a few layers here as well, building that background effect up. Some gradients, some color wash. So again, you could come in and you could add some color into that background if you definitely wanted to do that. That's an option. And even for this bottom gradient, if you just wanted to add some color cast into that gradient, you could certainly do that here as well with a simple color picker. All right, so that's the general look at the layers that exist here within the design. So now let's look at putting a subject in here and customizing this a little bit. So the first thing that we'll do is open up our subject group, and we see right here, edit main subject. And now this is a smart object, so the way that we want to edit this is just double click this little layer thumbnail that's got this little box with the little piece of paper it looks like here. So double click that, and it's going to open up a new document window for the main subject. So now I have this shadow in here as kind of a reference for how to align your subject to get close to what my samples show. Now again, feel free to make them whatever size that you like for the look that you want, but I just put this here as a general reference to go by. So what we'll do is we'll grab a subject here. I'm going to drag them over into our document window, and I'm going to Command or Control T to resize here, and let's just size them pretty close to what we have here, and that's probably going to be pretty close here. Let's zoom back in. So again, it doesn't have to be exact. This is just kind of a a placement idea or reference again to go by. So once I get my subject placed and sized where I want, I'm just going to turn this background, this original layer, off. And all we have to do at this point is close this document window. And when it asks us to save it, we're just going to say yes. And that's going to automatically update our subject in the design and create the duplicates of them in the background for this ghosted effect. All right, so that's where you can start to see all of these different layers and things creating all of the effect on the background subjects. All right, so that's why all of this is applied. Again, you really shouldn't need to touch it if you like the look of the effect as is, but that's how easy it is to drop a subject in, and it's automatically going to update everything. Now, for the mascot logo, now this is the dragons, but let's say we wanted to put a new logo in here. So this one's in there again as a reference. But if we grab in, let's say we grab a shark in here. Let's just turn this one off. Now you could leave this transparent as is. You could leave the size as is and just close this. Again, ask to save. We're going to say yes. And you can see it updates that shadow shape in the background there, and updates the little logo down in front here as well. So at this point you could Command or Control T if you wanted to resize or reposition anything in this background. On this shadow copy, you could do that right there. And you can see there are some smart filters getting applied here to create some blurring. So that's why you see when you transform, it's going to sharpen up, and then when you apply that transform, you're going to get that blurring applied, again, to create kind of that shadowy type of look. So again, you could make this, darker. You could make it lighter and less noticeable just by kind of clicking around. You could pick samples right out of the image. So again, very easy to use. And then, the text is there, but if we wanted to change the text, if this were the sharks, we would simply change the text there. change the color as with any normal text or by sampling, either way. So hopefully you see it's very simple to use and very quick to put adjustments in here. And let's back this out. All right, let's fix our logo back. There we go. So again, very easy to update the subject, very easy to update the logo for your school mascot. And then the last thing we would do here, this is the facial highlights. Let's bring our brush size down here. This is where I'd paint in with white. And you'll see for the darker skin tones, that's just going to lift the highlights on the face a little bit to bring that attention back to the face where we want. And there we go. That looks pretty sweet. So hopefully you see that it's, again, very easy to use. And, you know, I can't wait to see what you guys make with this. I hope that you love it. I hope that it helps make you some money. And can't wait to see you on the next